Today we have a crazy entitled parent story of a mom who thinks they control their kid. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my father demands an apology after 10 years of no contact. When I was 11 years old, my parents divorced. My father cheated a lot and my mother forgave him every time because she wanted to keep the family together. When I was 11, my father cheated again and ran off with this woman. What followed was a huge divorce with a lot of fighting and arguing. The only thing my father didn't want was us as children. It was decided that I had to go to my father at the weekends. Because where I live, divorces go through the courts and they think it's important that the children continue to see both their parents. During these weekends, I was used more as a kind of a Cinderella by my father and his girlfriend, and I was systematically abused mentally and physically. Every time I made a mistake in their eyes, didn't do something the way they wanted, didn't get things done on time because I had a lot to do, I was hurt with objects or just by hand. My father's favorite thing was his belt, and my stepmother liked to use an electric fly swatter, which gives off electric shocks when you turn it on so that you can kill the fly without crushing it, so to speak. If you hold it against your skin with the metal part, you will get a pretty hard electric shock. To this day, I am terrified of electric fly swatters, even though where I live they're very common household things. I managed to hide the abuse for years by wearing baggy clothes with long sleeves, whether it was summer or winter. Because of this, I quickly became the weird kid at school and had no friends. The abuse had enormous mental consequences, but I wanted to persevere because I was afraid that if I stopped coming on weekends, my father's girlfriend would work out her anger on my little sister. She was only 5 when my parents broke up. I withdrew more and more to my room when I was with my mother so that I didn't have to talk to her. My mother is a sweetheart. She is really sweet and friendly and only wanted the best for me. She thought I was having trouble with the divorce and that I was starting to go through puberty. She regularly suggested that I go to a therapist, but I always didn't want to because I wanted to protect my sister. When I was 16, my gym teacher found out about the bruises because I suffered an injury during sports class and she had a look at my legs. As a result, child protection was immediately called to see that I was covered in bruises. My mother was so shocked that she kept me and my sister at home from that moment on. The judge decided that the contact arrangements were terminated and that we as children no longer had to visit my father. My father has always blamed me for the fact that he no longer sees his children. He called me a bad daughter, and I should have never have told anyone what happened in our home. He felt that it was no one's business and that it was bad parenting, that it would make me hard and grow up to be a strong woman who could serve her husband in this way, that if I behaved better and did what I was told, I wouldn't have to be beaten. 10 years have passed since then. Because of what happened and we lived in a small village, everyone knows what happened that he and his now wife did to me. I moved far away from them and cut off all contact with him. I went to therapy to learn to deal with everything. I have a very sweet partner who supports me and also helps me to overcome my fears that I developed because of my father. I regularly have panic attacks at home and I'm afraid of being home alone. We bought a video doorbell so I can see who's at the door without having to go to the door because I'm afraid you'll find out my address and come to see me. He's already tried to find out my address a few times through my sister since she's been in contact with him again for a few years. Her reasoning was that they have not done anything to her, and they're always kind to her, so she sees no reason not to visit regularly. Recently, I received a letter from my father through my sister in which he demanded that I apologize for my behavior, and that because of me, the entire village thinks he is a disgrace. In the letter, he said that he's getting older and his hearing and vision are getting worse. He demands that I apologize to him, and that I introduce him to my partner, who really doesn't want that because he knows my entire history. He thinks he's been a good father, and that being raised by my mother has made me soft, and that I'm a bad woman now that I'm pursuing a career outside the home in biology. My sister tells me that I should just say sorry, and that he will really leave me alone afterwards. He really just wants to hear that he was a good father and that I regret talking to people 10 years ago when they saw my bruises. I really don't want to, but my sister and father's family keep pestering me to say that I should just do it so that he can close it off and the village will no longer find him a shame. I really don't want to, and I haven't slept at night because of it. I don't know what to do anymore, and my partner tries to calm me down so I don't have to think about it anymore because it gives me panic attacks. But my father and his family keep insisting and nagging me to do it by sending me messages on social media and calling or WhatsApp me. I keep blocking them, but they create new throwaway accounts to reach me or give letters and messages to my sister so she can give them to me. I didn't tell my mother about this because she already feels very guilty that she didn't notice the abuse all those years ago. So what do you think? Should I just apologize to get it over with? So in my opinion, I think honestly, if the sister cannot understand you were abused by this person a lot, and they can't understand and respect that and let it go, then honestly, I think the sister needs to be considered for cutting them off. For OP, at this point, after all they've experienced, to be pressured into apologizing to their abuser is ridiculous. I mean, it just blows my mind that the sister, who understands what happened, is still pushing and saying just apologize to him. To me, it just cries of them also being conditioned and probably having been treated in a way where if they say no, they're going to have heck to pay. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of entitled parents, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, you called CPS because a toddler was running around naked? I was visiting with a very good friend of mine this weekend after a mutual friend's birthday party. We'd all gone, but it wasn't really a place conducive to quiet enjoyment of a friend's company. There was lots of noise and lights and sugary birthday goodies that everyone partook in, including my friend's two sons. One of them isn't one yet, and the other is balls deep into the terrible twos. The answer for everything is no, even when the answer was meant to be yes. It's hilarious, mostly because I can go home. My friend and his wife, they're tired, understandably so. So we were sitting in front of the TV and minding the boys while my buddy's wife wanted some time not spent in the immediate vicinity of her offspring, which, honestly, fair. She drove off in her car and went I know not where, and we divided the labor equally. My friend had the kid who couldn't walk yet, and they were curled up on the couch. I think the intent was for a quiet nap. Me? I was stuck with a 2-year-old and we had beef. At one point in the birthday party, I was playing skee ball at an arcade and offered my last ball to the 2-year-old. He wound up like he was on a baseball mound and I wound up having to go, no, and intervene. He has yet to forgive me for this transgression. So my charge for a little bit decided watching Bluey was for suckers, and he was going in search of adventure. And I was following him around because that's what you do when someone places the welfare of their child in your hands. The whole time he's sulking and glaring at me every time he realizes I'm still behind him. It was so hard not to laugh because it was so overblown and dramatic. So we're in the boys' room and the kid I'm watching is currently trying to cram his little body under his bed and shouting about wanting mama. Tough luck, kid. Mama's taking a break. You're stuck with me. And then there's a knock at the door. It's a caseworker from CPS and a police officer. I didn't realize this at the time as I was trying to make sure the kid's head wouldn't actually get stuck under the bed. I'd never live it down. My buddy answers the door and is rather alarmed to see the pair waiting at the door. Then they came in and my buddy shouted for me to come back to the living room with the kid. So I scoop up my charge and he starts squirming and squawking because he wanted to be under the bed, and clearly this is not under the bed. Matter of fact, this is the opposite, and he promptly shuts up. Because strangers. Caseworker goes on to explain that they've gotten reports about toddlers being left outside in the snow with only a diaper on, being left naked to run around the house, bruises on the kids, etc., etc. For the uninitiated, most toddlers, they cannot stand wearing clothes. They want out of them immediately. Even the hint of a chance at ditching the clothing and they'll go for it. The cop looks around for a moment and says something to the CPS worker and then leaves. I sit with the 2-year-old, who was clothed by the way, and my buddy does all of the talking. I can tell he's furious, but I didn't really know why at the time. Caseworker wanders around the house a little bit, takes a look at both kids, then shrugs and says he can't see any evidence behind the report, but everyone has to be investigated. They'll be in touch, but it won't be a home visit unless new evidence or reports come to light. After the caseworker leaves, my buddy hands me the not quite 1-year-old, takes out his phone, and goes into the basement, and promptly starts screaming at the top of his lungs into the phone. The 1-year-old just went back to napping and the 2-year-old showed some survival instincts. He just looked at me and said, "Daddy mad," and watched the TV with me and his brother. My friend's mother had some sort of mental illness flare up on her out of nowhere, I don't really know the details because it's not my business, but what little I did hear about was horrific enough. Evidently, on Grandma's last visit, the 2-year-old managed to escape the clutches of bath time and wound up making a beeline straight out the open front door into the snow. He realized this was a poor life choice seconds after escaping, mostly from face planting into snow after tripping, and struggled not at all to be brought back in for bath time. Why was the door open? Grandma's new boyfriend was rather drunk and attempting to bring in a pile of Christmas gifts that were arriving in late January. He fell down the stairs when he tried opening the door, so they just propped the door open to allow easier offloading. In a nutshell, crap happens. Kids have minds of their own and do their own thing. He was never in any actual danger, just a 2-year-old doing 2-year-old things. The fact that Grandma twisted the event in such a fashion honestly confuses me, especially since the root cause of the kid getting out at all wasn't even my friend's fault. The really freaked up part about the report though, the reason there was a cop there was because Grandma told CPS that her son was an alcoholic with a mean streak when he was drunk. And he kept a gun at the door. He does keep a gun by the door. It's a double-barrel shotgun in a small safe with a keypad, because he lives in the boonies and it's not unusual to see things like bears. To the best of my knowledge though, the only time that gun is fired is at a range, so my buddy and his wife can use the weapon competently if the need should arise. Her own son though? To me it sounds like it's time probably to put some distance between them and Grandma. Ain't no way you gotta be putting up with that kind of behavior from Grandma. I just especially hope they make sure that everything is documented as being a ridiculous thing, and that the CPS visit and the cops showing up was totally unnecessary and unfounded. Our next story is possible animal abuse from my mother. I posted a couple of weeks ago about my mother, and since then I've been no contact with her. She's in Eastern Europe, my brother as well. I'm in the States. She asks my brother why I don't have Viber and says she forgot her Facebook password because their Facebook was down for 2 to 3 hours. So she can't message me and calling me would be expensive. I've blocked her everywhere, so I'm pretty sure she realizes it and just avoiding the topic with him. I've blocked her on Messenger, but restricted her on Facebook so she can at least see grandkids' pictures. Not once I heard about her asking my brother how I'm doing, if I'm okay or feeling okay. I know she doesn't care. So to the things I listed in my previous post, I want to add a couple more that I remember being weird from the past. Our first family dog was in her care after my grandmother died suddenly / slipped in the bathroom or something like this. She was waiting for me to come back from college to visit and was excited and cooking for me the night before and was devastated because my brother found her. She was a little over 60. Then my father ended things the next year. Also, I don't exactly know the details, just remember my mom yelled at him every night. My brother was 13 and I was in college away and then came to the States. So I guess my mom put the dog in our village house by itself and the neighbors were feeding her? I was considering taking our dog here with me. Then I get a Skype call in which I was told by my mother that the dog died. That it had epilepsy and she had a doctor check her out but left her alone again and she died by herself there. I was so devastated and mad and cried for my poor pup being helpless there, all alone and I guess sick on top of that. A few years later, my brother had a dog that my mom again ended up taking care for. She has a huge property and he goes every weekend from college to see her and pup. She said a car hit him and my brother was so sad. Since then, I feel like our whole family shouldn't have pets ever because we can't be responsible enough to care about them. I saved a kitten at my door here in USA in 2008. He recently passed at 13 years old and had a great life with him. I feel like I'll never care for a dog at home because I don't know if I would be responsible enough or if I deserve to even. These animals deserve more than we can offer them. I think she should have had the doctor put our pup to sleep if the illness was really there and incurable, but also she should have rehomed her instead of leaving her alone. I also should have just taken her with me when I came. I am horrible for leaving her behind. Another thing I noticed is she threw out all my dad's and mine's belongings, including all family photos. I keep asking for grandma's or dad's pictures, and my mom used to say, yeah, I'll look for them, but never happened, so I stopped asking. I'm lucky I got my birth certificate and diplomas, a big bag of books I bought myself as a kid, and a couple albums I made myself. Otherwise, all that I bet would have been lost like my dad's classical music records collection. My husband and my mom-in-law think I should keep in contact with her, and if she comes here to have her separate space. But I can't afford to buy her a house and don't want her living with us, and can't afford medical costs for her. She has all that settled there. Currently, she has my brother as an owner of everything she has. I told him sell that big property, that the land is still municipal actually, they just own the building, so if you can sell it, get her some apartment or a house, and use the rest of the money if she gets to an age to need a helper or nurse at home. I can send money to help if that's not enough, but don't need to communicate with her. She must miss the grandkids, but she calls only so I can walk around with the camera to see them. There is no need to talk to me if they are sleeping, in her words. I hope I'm not repeating myself from the last post. Thank you for reading, and yes, I know I should have taken our dog here. I am horrible and will always feel bad for her. I definitely feel for OP here. I feel like there's times in my life where I look back and I'm like, I needed to have more conviction. I was wet cardboard in a moment where I needed to be stone and actually take charge of a situation, and I just didn't. I guess really it's all about learning from those experiences and trying to do better the next time something comes up, rather than letting it just haunt you for the rest of your life. Our next story is, a 7-year-old brainless kid ruined my day, which was supposed to be a fun time to spend with my recently adopted sister. A freaking 7-year-old kid. I can't care a freak about his privacy. I am that angry right now. I am literally in tears. His name is Bavia. This day was supposed to be filled with happiness as I was seeing my parents after a week, and they were coming back with a 6-month-old girl. The so-called party is over now. It started from 9 p.m. to 12 midnight. Bavia is so phone addicted, it's crazy. His parents are good with their other 2 kids somehow. Spoiler alert, they're not. Other 2 kids, but not this little freaker. The other 2 kids turned out to be great as they were with their uncle most of the time, so that explains it. Me, the older brother of this kid, let's call him Jack, and another kid, let's name him Johnny. There was a 3rd kid too, let's name him John. So me, Johnny, Jack, and John were in my room having some fun. We had music and games on my Nintendo Switch. It was fun until we were forced to have Bavia with us. I don't want mine, Jack, Johnny, or John's age to be out there as I respect them, but we were older than him. We're almost twice his freaking age. We said it was fine and had to take him in the room. First up, he peed on my bed. It's not a whole lot, but he still peed. His parents tried to play it off, saying it was just water. He is that addicted to the phone he can't get up to pee? His parents are just mindless freaks, saying it was probably just water that fell on him. There wasn't a drop in the room that was near him. I was mad but had to control it. This is only the beginning. Our parents were all drinking beer, having fun, so they gave us a bottle of Coke too. Bavia's parents had told us not to give him any, so we divided it into 4 equal parts for each one of us. We all only got like half a glass. There was nothing left in the bottle, keep that in mind. This dude comes in grabbing everything he can. He grabs my Pokemon card box, opens it, and throws them all on the floor. I was mad, but not that mad as they were fakes, but still I had a lot to clean up. He now takes the empty Coke bottle and puts them all in remaining glasses. We were given a stack of around 10 glasses, we used 4. This freaking kid put all of them in a line on my bed frame and supposedly poured Coke in it. He then drank out of each glass. For the finale, his mindless, stupid freaking parents, his parents made the situation worse. They came in the room and told him, even if it was sarcastically, to pee on my whole bed. I had so many complaints, but of course they were busy. They pushed him to come play with us. Holi, a very popular and widely celebrated festival in India, is coming close. So my dad got me a surprise and bought me an electric water gun. These freaking parents give it to him. As to why, here are their words. This is translated from Gujarati to English. Ooh, we thought he would just look at it. Like, of course he's going to press the only button on that. TLDR of this part, he made my entire room wet. His parents also did nothing for this. They saw my already in-mess room get even messier and just watched from a distance. I would like to apologize for the foul language. I'm very angry as I had to clean for a good 30 minutes. When somebody comes in and is being like the Tasmanian devil in your own bedroom, are you really going to be out of line if you're like trying to force them out, or even just like speaking up and saying get out? Like, I'm just left wondering, is OP actually going to get in trouble if this kid who's literally making such a mess is like escorted out somewhat forcefully by OP? I mean, come on. This next story is, I'm the only relative my parents loan money to. Everyone else is gifted money, cars, services, dental care. They pay for things for their extended families that they move away from. All my dad's parents and siblings have needed financial help at times. They support his dad monthly. I've seen my mom unconditionally support my dad after he did things like max out 4 Shell station gas cards assigned to each member of our family on gas station lottery scratchers. I was the only child driving at that time, and I was accused daily of doing this. They had to pay Shell back a lot of money when the truth came out. I did not get an apology, and my mom started making me give her receipts every time I used it. Even though my dad was the only one running up the bill, he got bailed out of becoming addicted to gas station caffeine pills. I'm not saying I wish my mom hadn't helped him. I'm just saying I saw these things, and so I thought my parents were generous, kind people who supported relatives in need. I became in need of financial support recently after a divorce, COVID, and changing careers. I thought my parents would help me like I'd seen them help their extended family, but no. My parents made me sign a contract to pay them back before they would give me desperately needed money. I just paid them back the final $240 that they insisted on collecting while I'm unemployed, sick, and stressed by my landlord not fixing the snake hole nest of a property I live on, while my partner's family is bankrolling our rent so I can focus on finding a better job. I ended my marriage with $33,000 in debt because my ex had paid off all my student loans in that amount in the first year of our marriage. I had that much debt because my dad got his master's and specialist degrees also in the 4 years that I was in high school. Stress of grad school while working and coaching full-time were reasons for the gas station addictions. There was no money for me. They refused to co-sign on cheap off-campus housing because they were scared. So I was forced to take out loans for $1,200 a month, plus $600 a month required meal plans living on campus. Now, to be fair, my parents have helped some. They asked me to create a spreadsheet of all my debt in 2 countries. I did so. They gave me $1,200 to give my ex-boyfriend who had helped me after my divorce, and $1,200 to pay one debt, while charging me $400 monthly rent to stay with them in between apartments. I was extremely grateful for this help. I always am. But why am I the only relative to pay them back? I have asked point blank this question now, and here are the responses I've been given. My marriage didn't fail. You are ungrateful. We only needed help when we had children and you didn't have children. You are ungrateful. You're the only one that can afford to pay us back. You are ungrateful. This way you won't feel guilty and like you owe relatives money. You are ungrateful. It's hard to be grateful for loans when everyone else gets gifts. I'm drowning. I feel for OP, I really do, but at the same time, even though you're seeing some very selective choices with their money as far as other relatives and you, at the same time, you can't really bank on your parents giving you anything. Like, honestly, at least they're doing something for you. I think if anything, this just helps inform you what you should do with your money when you get back on your feet regarding them down the road if they ever need it. Our next story is, my entitled mom thinks she controls me. This is about me, female 22, and my stepmom, female 43. I have a daughter I'll call Lily, female 2. I was diagnosed with autism when I was younger, and entitled mother thinks that makes me an unfit mother. We had an argument yesterday about me going out on a date with my boyfriend of 2.5 years, male 25. I had gone out of the day before with my boyfriend and Lily. We went out to eat and went to the park. She said that because I'd gone out yesterday, that there was no need to go out today. Entitled mother also commented that she didn't want boyfriend in the house while Lily is awake. That convo went something like this. I told you I don't want boyfriend in the house when Lily's awake. I said, she's my kid, not yours. If I want to go out and do something with her and boyfriend, I can. Plus, I pay half the rent, so it's not just your house. I then walked away and she yelled at me to come back and finish talking to her. After I said no, she went over to my room and she followed me. I sat on my bed and she burst into my room and blocked the doorway. I told you not to ask your grandparents for a car seat anymore. I said, we just felt like going out last minute and you weren't home to ask you for yours. She says, well, I guess if it's last minute and I'm not home, I guess you aren't going. I tell her, I'm not a child, I'm an adult that can make my own decisions, and Lily is my daughter, not yours, so I don't need permission to take her out. This whole time, entitled mother's leaning on the door, blocking it with her arms crossed, just staring at me. I said, I'm not scared of you anymore. She says, I didn't think I made you think you have to be. I point out, you're literally blocking my exit with your arms crossed, trying to look intimidating. We both screamed at each other. I guess she wanted me out of the house for a few hours, so eventually she let me go. Before she did, she said that if I ever talked to her like I did that day, to not even bother coming home. When I came home later that night, she acted like everything was fine and normal. She's been emotionally abusive for as long as I can remember, except now that I'm an adult and back from college, she's financially abusive as well. 100%, there needs to be some distance here if OP can swing that. It's just not good for OP's long-term mental health to be around somebody like this who's trying to be controlling. And not just trying to be controlling, but kind of belittling OP and trying to get it through their head that they can't do normal things a normal adult should and can do. This next story is, I think my narcissist dad is starting to feel guilty about leaving the family when I was 5 years old. I recently told my dad that I was raised by a woman, because he simply was not there. He is obviously delusional and said, no, you was raised by both parents. This is incorrect. I was not raised by both parents, only my mother. Then an hour later, he came back with a heartfelt speech saying how he won't be here forever and how it pains him that he couldn't see me and my siblings more, which to me, I thought this was him finally admitting that he was absent. He then finally counteracted himself and tried to justify his behavior by saying, boys in Africa and America are mostly raised by just a mother, then when they turn into an adult, the father teaches them how to be a man. So now that I'm a man and my mother raised me a single parent for my entire life, you come and swoop me up and teach me how to be a man? Well, I guess at least there's some kind of desperate cry for some kind of connection at this point. But at this point, after all these years, it's probably a too little too late kind of situation, right? I mean, overall, it's just ridiculous. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy entitled parent story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.